What is the most underrated Academy Award category?
Best International Feature Film.
Best Foreign Language Film.
Best International Feature Film.
Best Foreign Language Film.
Best International Feature Film.
Best Foreign Language Film.
International Feature Film.
Best Foreign Language Film.
Here are the nominees for Best International Feature Film.
These are the movies not good enough to be a part of the main category because, you guessed it, they are not in English.
장벽도 아니죠. 한 1인치 정도 되는 그 장벽을 뛰어넘으면 여러분들이 훨씬 더 많은 영화를 즐길 수 있습니다.
Once you overcome the 1-inch tall barrier of subtitles, you will be introduced to so many more amazing films.
Well, for years, that was the norm until in 2019, one film broke the barrier, changed the status quo, and automatically exposed the pretentious and masturbatory tendencies of the Oscars to always pick its favorite darlings. Written and directed by Bong Joon-ho, Parasite was the one time in history a Hollywood movie was so good, so epic to the point that it couldn't be ignored. A foreign film winning Best Picture at the Oscars, beating a Martin Scorsese film, and a billion-dollar blockbuster. Well, unfortunately, this is not a video about Parasite. I'm sure you've seen a shitload of them, and nobody wants to hear another Bong Joon-ho lapper and me try that talking about Parasite in 2026 from a small Thomas Flight wannabe channel.
No.
Now, I want to tell you about a 2005 South African film that probably nobody outside of Africa has ever heard about, and in my opinion, I consider this film the greatest and the most underrated Best International Feature Film.
And the Oscar goes to Tsotsi. Accepting the award, director Gavin Hood.
Written and directed by Gavin Hood, Tsotsi is among the only 10 African films to ever get nominated for the awards, and the only African movie to ever win one. So, why did it win? In order to answer this question, I feel like we should look at the history of the Academy and see why they choose to pick certain winners. We need to look at the trend and see what makes certain films win, what makes certain films not win, and the history and the trends. What is the criteria for winning Best International Feature Film? Asghar Farghali, two-time winner of the Best International Feature Film, with 2011's A Separation and 2016's The Salesman, has a pattern of making deep, emotional, traumatic, and borderline brutal depiction of the actual real world, about how life isn't fair and nothing ever works out for anyone. The lives of others, Sons of Saul, Roma, and All Quiet on the Western Front lean towards the reality, war-related, or based on true events. We have the usual romance, culture, and dramas, but Tsotsi, in my opinion, was the only film where the actual protagonist carried the film. One thing I love about Tsotsi is the idea that nothing ever goes well for our titular protagonist. As a matter of fact, I can go ahead and say Tsotsi is one of fiction's most stupid, most misfortuned, and most problematic protagonists ever. Every decision he makes is just plain impulsive and has absolutely no positive outcome. Anything and everything that can go wrong for him always goes wrong. Tsotsi is a low-life hardened criminal who runs a gang of 4 upcoming wannabes living in the slums of Soweto in South Africa. They do everything from stealing cars, hit jobs, extortions, home invasions, and hell, even kidnapping infants. At the beginning of the film, Tsotsi is an impulsive, cold, narcissistic psychopath. No, seriously, check this out. Within the first 30 minutes of the story, this is what happens. And his crew robs off a guy from a train, then for absolutely no reason, unalives him right there. He mercilessly beats his best friend to an inch of his life because he questioned his morality. He literally stalks a cripple who stood up to him at the train station and told him off, bullies him, and makes him beg for his life. Carjacks a woman, shoots her when she was defending herself. She was unarmed, by the way, and runs off with the car on top of stealing her infant baby. Hell, at one point he even contemplates on killing the child. And yeah, all this happens within one freaking day. Tsotsi as a character is a victim of impulse and no logic. What he does reflects the Tsotsi at the present. He doesn't care about the past, he doesn't care what the consequences will lead to. This is one really impulsive, really stupid, and downright sad character. Now, if we look at the origin and the backstory of our titular character, he was a victim of a very rough childhood. He watched his mother constantly get assaulted by his dad and eventually killed off. He witnessed the HIV pandemic among his family members close to him. He literally lived as an orphan and a street kid, barely had any formal education. I barely even doubt this guy can read. In other words, this nigga was dealt the worst hand ever in life. Now, does that give him the right to shoot an unarmed woman trying to save her infant baby from a madman who's carjacking her? Absolutely fucking not. I honestly don't see any reason why Tsotsi was always angry, always impulsive, always rebellious. I don't think specifically for his case, his childhood defined him for who he was. I do not think he was justified to be this way. I kinda feel like he had opportunities to be someone better but chose not to. One of the things I loved about this film is how it portrays a morally ambiguous story. Sure, The main story at hand was about Tsotsi being a stupid piece of shit who fucks up everything he touches. But this is one of those stories you actually don't know who to root for. In storytelling, we have something called a character arc. Now let's forget this two fucking exists. A positive character arc is when the character starts with a personal flaw, internal lie or weakness and overcomes it to become a better person, a wiser person. Think of Zuko in Avatar The Last Airbender. When we see him, he was hell-bent in capturing the Avatar for the sole purpose of getting acceptance from his father. But when he fails multiple times, when he finally gives up his goal of killing the Avatar, starts accepting himself, when he starts to actually hang out with Aang, the real Zuko is in. He wasn't an evil piece of shit like his sister. He was just a teenage boy looking for his father's approval, and he will do it by any means necessary. In the history of African cinema, no one best displays a positive character arc like Tsotsi. His positive character arc isn't portrayed in the form of a redemption arc like Zuko. It's more of a moral and psychological evolution. Yes, Tsotsi beat up his best friend over a petty argument because his ideology was challenged, but he does everything possible to make it up to him, offering to pay his bills and giving him a place to stay and even taking care of him. Yes, an old cripple talked shit to him in the subway early in the day. In his mind, Tsotsi had every reason to kill him because his poor little feelings got hurt. But he actually sits down, hears him out, compromises and lets him go. Tsotsi actually managed to see that holy shit, yeah, maybe this guy has been fucked by life more than me. Tsotsi is a hardened criminal who kidnapped an infant after shooting an unarmed woman and stealing a car. But he doesn't harm the child. In fact, he goes the extra mile for providing for him by looking for a lactating mother to feed him and using every means possible to change his diaper. And finally, towards the climax of the film, when they were doing one last robbery, Tsotsi was put in a situation where he had to choose his friend and the father of the kid who he kidnapped. He did that. He actually ended up making the right choice for the first time in his life. And yes, he did eventually bring back the kid and willingly surrender to the police because at this point of the story, Tsotsi felt like he had to pay. He had to be a better person.
Again, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to justify anything Tsotsi did. I mean, for heaven's sake, who shoots an unarmed woman? Who the hell kidnaps a child and doesn't know what to do with it? Like, this guy was so broke he couldn't even afford diapers. This guy couldn't even afford basic food. What the hell did he have any business kidnapping this kid? I truly believe that Tsotsi, at the end of the day, for the least that he can suffer, he deserves to rot in jail. But I feel like the most appropriate punishment is the death sentence. Like, this guy doesn't deserve to be alive. He's just a menace to the society.
All the events from how the film started to how it ended changed him from a murderous psychopath, almost as evil as some African presidents, to, well, still a murderous psychopath as evil as some African presidents. But hey, at least he felt guilty and did two right things by turning himself in and returning the kidnapped baby.
Why wanna rap pipe? Ego dim, mo lefty.
Yeah, Gavin. Yeah.
Nilaminize.
Nanti ko nasohlala va.
No. Kinaliposi yaka.
Manje utlisa incwadi moru. Ufuna ukavisa le ncwadi idlala lakhe lakudala.
This film is written and directed by Gavin. He is a Best International Feature Film winner, don't get this twisted. He is no Bong Joon-ho, but one thing is for sure, he is currently, in my opinion, the second greatest filmmaker from Africa. Gavin Hood was born in Johannesburg, South Africa, and despite what Google and every single media tries to tell you, no, he wasn't born poor. He actually came from money. He attended private schools, studied abroad, and his parents worked in the industry, so you can say he got a head start in life. But that doesn't take away from his talent. Ever since the success of Tsotsi, he found quite a huge success in Hollywood. In 2007, he directed Rendition starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Reese Witherspoon. Then later on to direct The Worst X-Men, almost rightfully ended Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, and found moderate success in Ender's Game and Eye in the Sky. You can say that the success of Tsotsi catapulted the filmmaker's career from an indie director into becoming a mainstream Hollywood director. Granted, these movies kinda suck, I'm not gonna lie, but he did achieve generational wealth. Tsotsi is one of those rare films that completely does an 180 on a filmmaker's career. The right people saw it and gave him all the opportunities. It kinda sucks that the same cannot be said of the cast of this film. Presley Chewan Naya. Come on, guys. I can't fucking read this name. This is so hard. You get the point. You can read it. You can Google him. This Presley guy who portrayed Tsotsi, who was snubbed from a rightful nomination of Best Actor, never found success after the movie. He went on to star low-level direct-to-DVD or minimal box office run films and sadly passed away in 2025, clearly not in the best shape and in the best health. And so did the rest of the cast. For fuck's sake, nobody from Hollywood came calling. All this talent, all this freaking aura, all this excellence, and they got stuck in South Africa. As a matter of fact, the only cast member who found moderate success is this guy, Kenneth Nkosi. He is known as the Adam Sandler of Africa, starring in comedic roles in popular African productions. None of these are Academy winners like Charlize Theron or Lupita Nyong'o. I'm not complaining, I'm just saying, it's kinda ironic that one of Africa's greatest films, and the only film to ever win an Academy Award, benefited only one guy, and that is Gavin Hood.
Now, one of the most unfortunate parts about Tsotsi, it kind of gave birth to this generation of copycats all over Africa. We had this trend in the 2000s and the 2010s where every single filmmaker wanted to recreate their own Tsotsi. Everybody wanted a piece of the pie, everybody wanted to be recognized by Hollywood. The most pathetic attempt, in my opinion, was this Kenyan movie back in 2013 called Nairobi Half-Life, written and directed by Tom Tykwer. It was a really cheap imitation, and I'm really glad that it wasn't even considered for any award whatsoever. It was a really fucking overrated movie. But I digress. In my opinion, I feel like Tsotsi is one of those films that suffers from being released at the wrong time. Yes, it won an Oscar. Yes, it became popularly celebrated around Africa. But I can't help but feel that people weren't ready for it. In 2005, nobody was ready to start getting into the film industry. If this film came out in the 2020s, we will be hyping this thing to the moon. Because it really sucks that there are worse productions from South Africa getting more recognition than something as good as Tsotsi. All in all, Tsotsi, it's a good film. I stick to the point that this is the most underrated Best International Feature Film winner, and I really wish that many people will just give it a chance and watch it. This is the most accurate depiction of poverty in South Africa and Africa in general and any other third world country. It's a most accurate depiction of the AIDS pandemic and you being a product of the bad hand that you are dealt in life. If I have to give it a rating, I'm gonna give it a solid 8 out of 10. I made a full-length Letterboxd review about it. Please follow me and kindly check it out. I'm trying to build a big Letterboxd community around Africa, and I would really appreciate if we start giving these good films upvotes. Check out my Letterboxd review and leave a like and follow me on Letterboxd. So Tsotsi 2005, written and directed by Gavin. I approve it. Go watch it. In order to answer this question, I feel like we should look at some history and see why wise fuck